Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Caleb Blake's Books. Today I am doing another book review, and that is for Star Wars Shatterpoint by Matthew Stover. So Shatterpoint is a Star Wars Legends or Expanded Universe novel taking place during the Clone Wars. I'm not sure when exactly in the Clone Wars it takes place, but it takes place, right in the midst of things. Probably a couple of years into the war, I would guess. And it follows Mace Windu, as you might assume by looking at the front cover. Basically the premise of this book is that Mace's old apprentice, Depa Billaba, has basically gone rogue, and potentially, she's been doing some stuff that is maybe not super fantastic, so he has to go to this other planet and kind of track her down. As far as positives with this book, I think this book does one thing exceptionally well, and it's the main reason why I really enjoyed this book, and that's Mace Windu. Mace Windu is wonderfully written here. This book is very introspective into Mace Windu, and part of that is due to the way it's written. A significant portion of this book, the majority, I would say 2/3 to 3/4 maybe, of the book is told from your typical third-person perspective. But the rest of it, the last bit, is journal entries directly from Mace's point of view. So he's in first person, he is actually expressing his thoughts, his feelings, his opinions, and all those things. And you get a real deep insight into Mace Windu as a character. You learn about, the way he thinks, the way he processes things, the way he feels about the war, the way he feels about what might be going on with Depa. You get, he comes across a little aggressive, a little bit, maybe closer to teetering on the dark side than maybe a typical Jedi might. Granted, maybe he's, still very light, but he's very aggressive about it. Even elsewhere in the book, just when he's doing stuff, he is extremely aggressive for a Jedi. He comes across more as the Anakin type in, say, Attack of the Clones, rather than an Obi-Wan, who is, a little bit more calm, a little bit more kind of diplomatic, and, Mace in this is more like a blunt force, to put it, I guess, that way. Very aggressive, very, really trying to get things done the way that he thinks they need to get done. But it's also very introspective, and you see the toll that the war has taken on him and all the things that have been going on. And, especially like the Battle of Geonosis, I think the book starts with that, if I remember correctly, and also ends with it, kind of him reflecting on that, how that kind of started everything, how he could have changed everything. He could have completely prevented the war if he had just acted a bit differently and all this stuff. And it's really fantastically done. I think this book is worth reading alone, just for that insight into Mace's character, because it's really fantastic. Otherwise, there are some really good side characters here. There's a character named Nick who's basically by Mace's side throughout a large portion of this book. He's one of the side characters from this planet that he goes to called Heron Kal. And he's one of the people there, and he kind of works with Mace Windu. Depa Billaba also is really good here. She's quite interesting. I'm not too familiar with her character either in Legends or canon, but she's done pretty well here. She is going through some interesting things, has some interesting discussions going on with her. The premise of this book was really interesting. I loved, the idea of Mace, who is very obviously very distressed, very kind of broken over the events that have happened over the last several years, and then being faced with the fact that his apprentice is doing some things that are probably not very becoming of a Jedi, on this complete other planet and everything. And I love that premise, and I think that the premise was executed very well. A lot of the discussions within this book between characters are really interesting. And I think this book is really at its best when it's more small scale, more introspective, more, about the characters interacting and all that stuff, because the character work in this book is fantastic. And that's really all I have to talk about with positives, which seems like not very much, but really, like, that stuff in this book was phenomenal. Really the only big negative that I have is more so about the book as it goes along, more towards the end. The end of this book, the last 100 pages or so, were not really grabbing me as much. And I think the reason for that is, you know, this is a Star Wars book, so there's a high chance that as things go along, the final act is going to involve some big action scenes and things like that. And like I just said, I think this book is at its best when it's very introspective, very small scale, very, you know, Mace either in his own head or talking to other people. Whereas the end of this book still has plenty of that, but it is also very heavy on the action. There's a lot of stuff going on, and that's kind of, you know, I checked out a little bit at that point. Not so much for the Mace Windu stuff and all that, but, you know, I was just kind of reading it and I was like, yeah, this is good action for sure, but it just feels like it doesn't belong here to me. I don't know if anybody else who's read this has a similar feeling or not. But, you know, like I said, I just like this book better when it's being very introspective and everything. And that, even though it had its moments of that towards the end, was much more action heavy and everything. And I just felt like it wasn't really necessary. It makes sense for the plot and the way the plot progresses for that to happen. But I think I would have preferred that it had remained that more introspective, small scale type of thing rather than, you know, going big with the action. But that really is all I have to say about this book, which isn't a whole lot, but I really did enjoy this one a lot. It's one of my new favorite Legends books. I don't know that it's on the same level as, say, a Darth Bane or some of my other favorites, but it is definitely pretty high up there compared to a lot of the other books that I've read. You know, it's, you know, maybe like top 10 Legends books I've read, let's say. And I really enjoyed it a lot. I loved the insight into Mace Windu and all the other characters and their interactions and all that stuff. Lots of really, really interesting stuff in this book. Lots of very thought-provoking stuff. It's just the ending dropped the ball a little bit for me. Maybe it won't for everybody, but, you know, I just thought that the action was maybe a bit much towards the end. But overall, this was a really fantastic read, and I was a little bit surprised. I expected to enjoy it because I've heard a lot of very good things about this book. But for some reason I was thinking, you know, I'll probably enjoy it a lot, but I don't know that it'll be a new favorite. But it turns out that it probably is. So as far as a rating out of 10 that I would give this, I would give it a 9 out of 10. As I said, lots of incredible stuff here, and really the only thing that brings it down for me is the stuff more towards the end. And even then, that stuff was still good. It just didn't feel like it entirely fit to me. And it's not entirely what I wanted out of this book, I guess. But otherwise, this was really fantastic. So that's pretty much it for this review. So let me know down in the comments if you have read Shatterpoint and what you thought of it. If you loved it as much as I did, or if you just liked it, or maybe even didn't like it, or whatever. And that is pretty much it for this video. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys next time.